Ever get that feeling? Like humanity's on this runaway train, and nobody's really sure where it's headed. Well, today's deep dive, it's kind of like sneaking a peek into the conductor's cabin. We're diving into Yuval Noah Harari's Homo Deus, A Brief History of Tomorrow, trying to catch a glimpse of the tracks ahead.
Hold on tight. Because Harari, he doesn't exactly believe in a slow warm-up. He throws you right into it, the paradox of where humanity finds itself right now.
Right off the bat. So good news first, right? We're winning. Not like a game show or anything, but the fight against the things that have always plagued us, famine, disease, war, Harari's argument, is we're actually getting a handle on them.
Yeah, he lays out a pretty convincing case. Just think about it for a second. Global trade, these networks we have now. It means if there's a drought on one side of the world, it doesn't automatically equal mass starvation everywhere anymore. We've learned to, shuffle resources around in ways people wouldn't have even dreamed of a few generations back.
Right. It's true, and it's not just about food either. We wiped out smallpox. Right. Gone. Used to be a death sentence. Now you get a sniffle, maybe grab some hand sanitizer, not panic about a plague. And even war. As awful as it still is, we haven't had another World War II. And Harari argues there are reasons to think that's not just luck.
Right. But, and this is a big but, all this progress, it came with a pretty hefty price tag.
Okay, so what's the catch? What's the downside to all this winning we're doing?
Harari's point is, we've achieved all this incredible progress by putting ourselves, humans, at the center of everything. And often, that's meant at the expense of, everything else. He's got this example, really sticks with you. Mammoths and rabbits.
Okay.
So humans, in our quest to, dominate, we wiped out the mammoth, gone.
Yep.
Rabbits, on the other hand, they're more adaptable, I guess. They multiply like crazy and, they're still here.
Makes you think, we're the winners in this story. But kind of a hollow victory if everything else is gone. Makes you think about how we treat the planet today, that's for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And that leads right into Harari's next big idea. We've tackled these basic survival problems, right? So humanity's got a new goal, even bolder, upgrading ourselves. And I don't mean like our phones or internet speed, though that's part of it, but upgrading what it means to be human.
Upgrading humanity. Okay, where do we even start with that? Sounds like, I don't know, a sci-fi movie or something.
Harari says closer than we think. And he lays out these three big ambitions that are kind of driving this whole upgrade. First one, immortality. And I don't just mean living longer. I mean actually ending death.
So like the vampires, but with, better tech.
Not exactly. Think more like those Silicon Valley billionaires.
Yeah.
Pouring money into life extension research.
Yeah.
Trying to hack aging, basically. They're not talking about squeezing out a few more years. They want to solve death, period.
That's bold, to put it mildly. But let's say they manage it, right? Living forever. Wouldn't that get kind of boring after a while?
See, that's precisely the kind of question Harari wants us thinking about. And it's not just about more years, it's the quality of those years.
Yeah.
Right? That's where the second ambition comes in. Engineering bliss. Imagine if we could tweak our own brain chemistry to be constantly happy, content, fulfilled.
Now that's an upgrade I could get behind. Though I can already hear the critics on this one. Isn't that like messing with the natural order of things?
Huge ethical questions there, for sure. And Harari doesn't shy away from those at all. Think about the debates we have now, even about antidepressants, right? About using them in the military. Are we about to start, medicating away any kind of negative emotion, even if those emotions, maybe they serve a purpose?
Yeah, definitely a slippery slope. But it gets even wilder, doesn't it? Harari's third upgrade makes immortality and bliss look, tame.
Right. He calls it achieving divinity. And I don't mean that in a religious sense necessarily, but more like humans acquiring these, godlike powers through things like genetic engineering, brain-computer interfaces, basically designing ourselves and our kids with specific traits, abilities.
So hold on, we're not just talking about picking your baby's eye color from a catalog anymore. This is next level.
It is. Harari even talks about creating entirely new senses, ways of perceiving the world we can't even comprehend right now. It's exhilarating, but kind of terrifying at the same time, to be honest.
No.
To think about what we might become.
Exhilarating and terrifying. Yeah, that's one way to put it. But here's the thing that keeps bugging me. All this upgrading, right? Immortality, bliss, divinity, it all sounds expensive. Like something only the ultra-rich would ever get to experience. Are we talking about a future where there are two kinds of humans? The upgraded and everyone else.
You're getting at something really crucial to Harari's whole argument here. He calls it the palace and the shack divide. Imagine the elite. They're living in these, like, high-tech fortresses, enjoying all the benefits of these upgrades, while everyone else is stuck outside dealing with, the same old problems.
So not so much upgrading humanity as creating a whole new species of superhuman. That's a pretty bleak picture.
It's a possibility Harari wants us to really confront. And it raises a question that's, well, it's as old as humanity itself. What does it even mean to be human? In a world where the very definition of human is, well, it's up for grabs, isn't it?
Okay, that's some heavy stuff. Before we go full existential crisis mode, though, can we shift gears for a sec? Because Harari throws another curveball into the mix, one that kind of flips this whole idea of predicting the future on its head.
You're talking about what he calls the paradox of knowledge. The more we know about history, the less predictable the future actually becomes.
That's the one. I gotta admit, I found that so counterintuitive. You'd think more knowledge would equal better predictions, right? So break it down for me. What's going on there?
Okay, yeah, the paradox of knowledge. More you know about the past, the less clear the future gets. Makes sense when you put it like that, I guess. But come on, it still feels kind of backwards, right?
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's like our brains just want to latch onto patterns. But think about it this way. The more we learn from history, the more we change how we act, right? We adapt. We try new things. Hopefully we don't repeat the bad stuff. But all those changes, they make it the new set of possibilities, right? The old patterns, they just don't fit anymore.
Okay, so it's kind of like trying to figure out what your friend's going to do next.
Yeah.
Based on, I don't know, what they were into last year, without considering, like, everything they've learned since then.
Exactly. They've had new experiences, met new people. It'd be kind of silly to assume they'd still make the same choices, right?
Yeah, okay, I get it. But you got a good example, something to really hammer this home.
Harari uses a really unexpected one, actually. Lawns. Lawns. Like the grass.
Yep. That patch of green we all just kind of take for granted. Turns out lawns have this surprisingly deep, kind of weird history.
Really?
Seriously. Like back in medieval Europe. Having a lawn, it was a huge status symbol. Only the super wealthy could afford to keep all that grass, perfectly manicured, no weeds. It wasn't about, like, aesthetics or being eco-friendly back then.
Right.
It was pure showing off, look how much land I own that I don't even have to use.
So basically, lawns were the medieval version of a sports car.
Exactly. But here's where it gets really interesting. Over time, the whole meaning of lawns, it shifted. They became associated with, like, democracy, public parks, this idea that everyone deserves a bit of nature, even in a city.
Yeah.
So this thing that started out as, like, a status flex, now we just see it as, I don't know, natural, good even.
It's like those optical illusion things, right, where you can see two different images depending on how you look at it. The lawn's still a lawn, but the meaning, it totally changed.
And that's precisely Harari's point. The history of lawns, it shows us that even the stuff that seems totally natural around us, it's actually the products of all these historical forces, forces we often don't even realize are there. And those forces, they're always in motion. So the future, it's way more fluid, less predictable than we think.
Whoa, it's like realizing the world is running on code, right? But the code's being rewritten constantly, right in front of our eyes.
Now you're getting it. And that brings us to what I think is the core of Harari's whole argument. If the future's so unpredictable, if even the definition of human, it's evolving, what does that mean for us? What really sets us apart? What's the human spark that can help us navigate?
The human spark.
Yeah.
Yeah, that intangible something that makes us .us. When you're talking about upgrading our bodies and minds.
Yeah.
In ways we can barely imagine. Yeah, it does make you wonder, what's the one thing that can't be engineered, can't be rewritten?
It's a question that's, been kicking around for centuries. Philosophers, scientists, everybody wants an answer. Harari goes right for those classic answers, right off the bat. Humans have souls. We're the only ones with consciousness. But then he picks them apart. Shows why they don't quite hold up.
Yeah, I gotta admit, the soul thing always felt a little, I don't know, convenient, especially with, like, evolution and all that. And consciousness, don't even get me started. We barely understand our own minds, let alone if a cat's got one and an octopus.
Exactly. Harari actually compares consciousness to get this, the stock exchange.
The stock market.
Yeah, think about it. Millions of transactions every day, all these moving parts, complex system, seems to almost have a mind of its own. But would we say the stock exchange is conscious?
Not unless it starts demanding better snacks in the break room. So if it's not souls and it's not consciousness, what's the big reveal? What's Harari's answer? What's the human spark he lands on?
He says it's our unique ability to cooperate, but not just cooperate flexibly and in huge numbers.
Okay, so teamwork, on a massive scale. But, I mean, other animals do that, right? Ants, bees, they've got that whole colony thing down, Pat.
True, but there's a crucial difference. Harari argues humans, we cooperate based on shared myths.
Shared myths.
Things we collectively believe in, even if they don't, have some kind of physical reality. Think about it. Nations, religions, corporations, even money. Those are all essentially stories we've agreed on. And those stories, they're powerful. They unite us. They motivate us to achieve these incredible things.
It's like that saying, right? 2 heads are better than 1. Except in this case, it's more like millions of heads, all united by a common story, can build pyramids.
Exactly. And that ability to cooperate based on shared myths. That's what's allowed us to, dominate the planet.
Yeah.
But, and this is where it gets really interesting, I think. Harari asks, what happens when technology changes the game? When it allows for new ways to cooperate? Ways that go beyond our current limits? Ways that might even make our human spark obsolete?
Okay, hold on. Even more powerful than the shared myths that built our whole civilization. What could that even look like?
He calls it dataism. Imagine a world where the most important thing isn't happiness or even survival. It's information. The flow of information is the ultimate good. And algorithms, AI, they might get so good at processing all that data that they just surpass us. Our ability to understand the world, make decisions, even understand ourselves.
So it's not just about computers getting smarter, it's about them understanding us better than we understand ourselves. Yeah, okay, that's officially kind of freaking me out now.
I get it. It's a lot to process. And it's not just some abstract idea either. Harari points to things like the Google baseline study. They're trying to collect tons of health data, right?
Yeah.
Really, there's kind of perfect health profile.
Which, okay, on the surface sounds like a good thing, right?
Sure, but who controls all that data? What happens when algorithms can predict your chances of getting sick?
Yeah.
Before you even feel a sniffle coming on, do we just give up control? Let the algorithm decide what's best for us, even if we don't get how it came to that conclusion.
It's like the trolley problem, but on a whole other level. Instead of pulling a lever, it's like our entire lives being run by algorithms we don't even understand.
And Harari doesn't leave us hanging, thankfully. He lays out some possible scenarios. One, maybe humans become kinda irrelevant, our skills outmatched by AI at every turn.
Kind of a depressing thought.
Or we merge with the technology.
Right.
Become part of some kind of hive mind. This super intelligence where individual identity doesn't really exist anymore.
So either useless, or assimilated? Those are my options.
Well, there is one more. Harari says it's possible a new kind of elite emerges. Those with the resources to, enhance themselves, their kids. They basically transcend what it means to be human, while the rest of us are left behind.
Okay, so 3 very different paths. And not a lot of happy endings in sight, I gotta say. Harari really doesn't shy away from the big, scary questions, does he?
He doesn't. But I think that's a good thing. Because Homo Deus isn't really about predicting the future. It's about giving us the tools to understand the forces shaping it. A new way to look at the choices we make every single day.
So less about predicting, more about creating, deciding what we value, what kind of future we want to be a part of.
Harari says it best, I think. The future is not something that happens to us. It is something we create.
That's a powerful thought.
That's
So
right.
to everyone listening right now, what does that mean for you? What's one small thing you can do, knowing what you know now, to nudge the future in a direction that feels good? Maybe it's rethinking your own relationship with technology. Maybe it's learning more about AI, the ethics of it all. Or maybe it's just starting a conversation with someone about these ideas. Because if there's one thing we've learned today, it's that the future of humanity, it's a story that's still being written. And we all have a role to play in writing the next chapter. Thanks for joining us for this incredible deep dive into Homo Deus, a brief history of tomorrow. Until next time, keep those minds curious, keep asking those big questions, and let's keep those imaginations running wild.